From ATU to American Idol and now building his own name in country music, we are excited to welcome Tech TV alumni, singer-songwriter Ryan Harmon to the show.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe it's been so long since I've been in here, and I'm just looking around like I'm just reliving all of the memories, some good, some not so good, some we still haven't told the powers that be about, and I hope they never find out about it. It's always good to be back home.
So like you said, it's good to be home. You attended college here and you were a broadcast journalism student from 2015 to 2017. At what point did you realize that you wanted to pursue a career in music?
I knew that from the time that I was a little kid, like 4 years old. I got my first guitar for Christmas. And at the time, everything that I revolved around was just country music. George Jones, Merle Haggard, Ray Price, the old country singers that I learned about from my grandfather. And he never really played an instrument very much. He had a guitar, but he didn't really have the time or the means to really learn how to play it. So it was just one of those things that he always wished that he could do and never got to. And somehow the bug bit me, and I was one who ended up trying to do something with it. But yeah, I actually knew, technically it's your last 2 years whenever they go ahead and let you really fully declare a major. But I knew from the day that I came here and walked into the advising center, and they were just wanting to give me a bunch of general courses, and I said, no, I want to do journalism. I want to do the broadcasting program. So I've always considered myself to be a 4-year broadcast major. I know that's not how it works, but I knew from day one that's what I wanted to do here.
What changed for you after American Idol?
Everything changed. I had always kind of trained myself to believe that there was no way to make a living playing music full time, and I never even had really given it a shot. From the moment that I graduated from here, I just did what you do. You try to go find a job. And of course, in the industry that we're in, and I'm sorry to say this in the very building where we learn how to do this, but I think it's something that probably everybody understands, that you go into this field because you have a passion for it, not because you want to make a whole bunch of money. We do this because we love it. We're storytellers, we're reporters. And to slide into the music world seemed like a really easy transition once it happened, because I'm still telling stories. Sometimes they're mine, sometimes they're other people's, and I get to kind of report on what I observe in the world, but I get to do it with a guitar in my hands. And so even when I was doing this for a living, whether it was working at a TV station or a newspaper or social media jobs, anything like that, I always had music with me. It didn't matter what else I was doing. I'd always try to find time to book gigs and do whatever I could, never realizing that I was working towards doing it for a living. And the year that I was actually on American Idol, when we filmed it, because we filmed it in the fall of 2019, it didn't air until spring of 2020. But that year was 10 years since I had started playing music. It was 10 years since the very first performance I ever did as a little kid. I was like 13. And I was actually giving some thought to just kind of packing it in at that point, because it seemed like I really wasn't getting anywhere with it. Little did I know I hadn't really tried to get anywhere with it. I was just so geared towards having to do something else and never actually trying to make my living doing what I loved and what I felt like I was put here to do. And once I got the invitation to go be on American Idol, there was a friend of mine who knew the producers and wanted to throw my name in the hat, and so I told him, absolutely, that's fine. And I didn't expect anything to come from it. I didn't even think I'd hear from anybody. And then I got an email one day, and he said, what's your phone number? They want to give you a call. And I thought, oh, well, it's probably a courtesy call, just saying, hey, thanks, but we're going to do something else. And lo and behold, they called me one Sunday afternoon. And I didn't answer the phone at first because it was a California number, and I didn't know anybody in California, so I thought it was a telemarketer. And I quickly realized, well, I might need to Google this number, and thank goodness that the number actually came back to the executive casting producer when I Googled it. And I gave him a call back, and he had taken the time to not only watch the videos that I had sent in just as examples, but he had listened to an album that I had put out at the time. This was back 9 years ago. I put out what's my self-titled album, and had no money to do it. I had no knowledge of how to really record. I didn't have the skill set to really do a good quality recording, but I did the best with what I had. But he had listened to that whole album. He had watched some interviews that I had done online and read up on me, and really took the time to get to know who I am and what I do. And the fact that he understood what I was trying to do and how I was trying to do it, and the fact that he even said himself, what you do doesn't really fit with where we normally go with the show and the kind of contestants that we normally pull from, but I like what you're doing and I think that you've got something, so we want to give it a try because you never know. And it ended up working out because I ended up not just doing a little private audition for the producers in Nashville, but about a week and a half later flew out to Savannah, Georgia, and actually filmed for the show. And it was a very quick process as far as all of that went. Now the day of was about a 14-hour shoot, so I guess I wouldn't really use the word quick for the day that we actually filmed it, but everything leading up to it, it just seemed like I fell backwards into it. But it was such an easy transition, like I said earlier, about going from being a reporter in the literal sense of the word to being a reporter in another way, but still always being a storyteller. And from the moment that that aired, it was March 1st of 2020, from the moment that it went to commercial after my segment was over, my phone started going off left and right. And I pulled it out and I'm seeing, Lionel Richie has tagged me in a post on Twitter, and I got a message from a guy who has been a member of Tim McGraw's band for about the last 30 years, who I'm now friends with, and people left and right in the industry, people from record labels and publishing companies. I never expected that anything like that would ever happen. I thought I might get a few more gigs out of it, but I didn't think it would actually change my life to the point where people who have been there and done that and are doing what I want to do are telling me, you've got to do this. So it really did change everything for me, because now I get to do what I love for a living, and there's nothing I would trade it for. Nothing at all. It's been a blessing.
Like you said, this is such a passionate field to go into. What have been some of your biggest struggles, and what have been the biggest payoffs for you along the way?
The biggest struggles for me, and we were talking about this a little bit before we got started here, is the ever-changing world of not just social media, but technology in general. And really the rules of the game change every time it seems like we get it figured out. And that's, somewhat on purpose. We won't go into all of that, but I've been blessed enough to get in contact with some people who work for certain companies or certain organizations that kind of set the boundaries of how things work, and you just kind of have to figure it out day by day how you can operate to the best of your ability with what you have to work with. And so it's been a struggle for me, especially kind of coming from the old school. All the guys that taught me how to do this were the guys that were going out and playing every sawdust floor, honky-tonk, hole in the wall that they could every single weekend for however much money they could make. And that's how I grew up doing it. Just going out and playing for people and playing every dive bar or coffee shop or any place with a stage that would let you go do this. And to now transfer to a world where you can still do that, but you got to figure out how to bring in the online part with it too. I did have to learn how to do that really quickly, because about 2 weeks after my American Idol audition aired, the whole COVID shutdown happened. Yeah. And I went from having offers to being on other TV shows and having some offers with different companies, publishing companies or record labels, what have you. And there were so many people who lost their jobs and their whole careers during all of that. The last thing they were going to be able to do is bring a new artist on board during all of that, because everything was in a freeze. And I had to learn how to get better at the live streaming and social media, because that was the only way I could reach people at that point. And it was a blessing in that I got to build up a much bigger following of people who I very rarely get to see in person, because I don't get to go around to every place very often. I kind of hub out of certain locations. That's sort of the way I do my performing. Most of what I do is between like Arkansas and Tennessee, Kentucky, that kind of area. But I'll go to, let's say, Texas for a few days at a time, just kind of be in one central location. Maybe go to Florida and be in one location for a few days, or Missouri. I kind of map out how I do things instead of just doing one night in each place and driving who knows how many miles. But it's been a blessing to be able to still reach people regardless if I'm in the car or if I'm on my phone, to be able to still reach that audience. And so that's been probably the biggest payoff, is the very thing that I've struggled with on the good days ends up being my biggest payoff, is being able to reach more people with what I do. And some of the comments and emails that I've gotten from people about some of the songs I've written have just meant more to me than I could probably ever put into words, which is kind of a scary thought, because I'm supposed to be able to figure out how to put things into words. That's kind of what I do. but I've had people who have sent me just the most personal, heartbreaking stories, whether it was relationship issues or family issues, and to know that anything that I've ever done would connect with somebody on that level, no matter what kind of struggles I have or what I go through, that's probably the biggest payoff I could ever have doing this.
What are some of the upcoming projects that you have that you're working on?
Well, I've always, this is another kind of struggle / payoff thing, because I was always geared towards making full albums. The problem with that is it would be like 3 or 4 years in between each album for me, because I spend so much time performing or doing other things that I don't necessarily have the time to get into the studio and work on a bunch of music. I do have my own setup, which has made it easier because I can do certain things by myself and not have to really block off time to go to a studio and work on full tracks. But I've geared myself now towards more of a singles mindset, just because that's the way that the industry has turned. Even during the COVID shutdown, I could really see it, because that's the last full album that I put out was 2020. And it did really well, but I could even see a shift that there were songs that would perform better individually as opposed to part of the collection. And the last multi-song project I put out was 2 years ago. It was an EP called The High Road, and that was 5 songs. And I released one of them as a standalone single, and that did really well just by itself. But like I said, as part of the collection, it just wasn't getting heard because people were looking for the singles. So I've really pushed towards doing more singles as opposed to albums, and it's a little bit of a struggle because I kind of tend to write somewhat thematically. So having songs that fit together now but aren't necessarily packaged together is something I'm trying to work through in my head. But that's really the biggest thing I'm working on right now, is building up my catalog from a single standpoint. And I've got some people that I'm working with now that are kind of trying to help me navigate all this stuff to where I can do it all independently. I've always been an independent artist, but there's always that part of you that thinks you have to team up with somebody else, or you have to sign a deal with a company or something like that. And it can help in certain cases, but I've had so many offers that came my way that weren't right for me, weren't going to allow me to actually do what I wanted to do, or weren't going to allow me to still maintain control of what I do, which is a huge mistake that a lot of friends I've made who have done this a lot longer than I have really steered me away from. And things have changed enough that I really think that there's a lot more room to be an independent artist now than there has ever been before, because there's so many avenues to go down. Even artists that are on major labels are trying to go down these same avenues that independent artists like myself have. So it's validated the ability to try to do things on your own. So I'm really kind of mixing things up this year. I've spent most of last year in Nashville, which has been kind of a push and pull kind of a town for me, because again, the way that I want to do things doesn't necessarily correlate with how things are done there. And I knew that going into it, and it's just kind of the way it's always going to be more than likely. But I've kind of reset and doing things totally my way now. And if I'm going to go down, I'd rather go down doing what I do. So far it's working out good, and trying to knock on wood. Yeah. That made a really hollow sound that I am not proud of in the slightest. I hope that didn't get picked up very well.
I was looking around for wood for you to knock on.
Yeah, that worked a little too well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to what this year has to offer, because I feel like I'm starting over from really a clean slate. And I didn't expect to be able to do that, but I've had a lot of opportunities come up that are solely because of my music and not so much about things that I've done in the past. So it's really exciting and a proud moment for me to know that I can at least have that shot.
Last question. I know we talked about it earlier, but do you have any upcoming shows that you have lined out, or?
I play all the time, and I'm making up, like I said, last year I spent most of my time in Nashville, and I didn't really play a lot of my home state spots very much, and that was how I made most of my living for the longest time. Regardless of where I'd play, I'd always come back, and every week I'd have at least a couple of shows in Arkansas, regardless of where else I was going. But I'm updating my schedule almost every day at this point. I've got new dates coming in. But if people want to go to my website, ryanharmonmusic.com. Again, that's ryanharmonmusic.com. For all things Ryan Harmon, visit ryanharmonmusic.com. .com. But I've got my schedule on there, and people can follow me through the Bands in Town website, and they've got an app too if you want to do that and get the notifications to where anytime I add a date you can see that. But for all my Arkansas people, there are going to be a lot more chances to see me than there have been in the last year or so. So I'm really excited about playing some of my favorite haunts again and not taking as much of a break from it as I did.
Thank you so much for this interview. That's all we have for you guys. When we come back after break, Ryan will be singing.
You mean there's still time for me to do a song after all that jabbering I just did?
Yeah, you absolutely have time
Oh,
to
wow.
do a song.
Well, I think I'll do the song I did on American Idol. It's called I Knew This Would Happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
In today's digital world, it's hard to know who to trust. Your local TV and radio stations bring you the facts. Misinformation and deep fakes flood social media, but broadcasters deliver verified and accurate news. For news, emergency updates, sports, and entertainment, turn to your local stations. Text TV to 52886 and urge Congress to support the vital local journalism broadcasters provide.
Here we sit, all alone, without a single word to say. There was a time when that's how we'd wanna be. Slow down some while the music plays, and I saw that look there in your eyes, like there's something on your mind. Well, darling, won't you tell me, what could it be? The world must be too hard to find. Everybody goes through this. Well, some things you just can't fix. Well, just wasting precious time. So if you're gonna leave me now, tell me, is it worth the pain? Tell me, do your tears fall like rain? Ever going through with this? Could we settle for one last kiss? Honey, I saw it coming, but that don't make it right. I knew this would happen, just didn't know it'd be tonight. Well, there it is, the final word. Well, I hope it gives you peace of mind. No, darling, I don't blame you, but you can't blame me for thinking that love couldn't be that blind. Just let me hold you in my arms and touch me with your gentle hands. For one last moment, you're still my woman, and honey, I'm still your man. So if you're gonna leave me now, tell me, is it worth the pain? Tell me, do your tears fall like rain? Ever going through with this? Could we settle for one last kiss? Honey, I saw it coming, but that don't make it right. I knew this would happen, just didn't know it'd be tonight. So darling, was it worth the wait? Or did you ever even hesitate? How long had you made up your mind? Is there anything that you might miss? Can I go on after this? 'Cause some things you just can't fix. So if you're gonna leave me now, tell me, is it worth the pain? And tell me, do your tears fall like rain? If we're going through with this, could we settle for one last kiss? Honey, I saw it coming, but that don't make it right. I knew this would happen, just didn't know it'd be tonight. I knew this would happen, just didn't know it'd be tonight.